What up? What up, everybody? I am Ari Temkin, and this is Showtime on Phantom. And we've got a lot to get to today, but before I get started, I made a little video to commemorate the Cowboys' tremendous victory over the Saints in 2009. And if you haven't checked it out, well, then here it is.
This is 24 yards for a 10-point lead. The kick's away from 20. He hit the right upright, and it bounced out no good. It's exactly how they did it. From the 20 Breeze, back to throw. Middle screen, broken up. 10 Breeze, back to throw. Over the middle, tipped up in the air. Caught by Breeze. And he gets away from Ware. Snap comes back on third down. Has time. Now he's hit by Ware. He throws it out to the 18. And Rookie makes the tack. Hand back to throw, standing tight. And Ware almost got there. And the pass is caught for a first down at the 25 by Colston. And at the 34, 1 minute left to play. Breeze throws it over the middle. The ball is caught. At the 38. Breeze is back. Pressured. Steps up. Goes left. Throws to the sideline. Knocked in on Wayne. Just trying to hang on to the fence. As everybody else goes up against the Saints all year. Third and 4. Breeze is back. Standing looking. Rush throws it to left side. Caught in the air. Thomas knocked out of bounds with a first down. Back. Here comes Butler. He steps up. Butler hits him. He throws down the field. The ball is over. Breeze back. It lets him stand. He throws it left. The ball is caught. Down. He's getting his way down the sideline to the 40. Breeze up. Stands left hand. And the ball came out. And it's thrown incomplete.
This is what I forgot about this game, and I'll give you a little bit more insight into this. Sean Lee actually talked about this yesterday. But I forgot about where the week before, what happened to him.
Okay, kids, deep breath. 12 seconds, Breeze is on second down. Back, sets in, fumble the ball. The Cowboys recover. And in one of the best football games you are going to see, the Dallas Cowboys have beaten the New Orleans Saints for the first time in 15 years.
All right. Good times. All right, I'm Ari Temkin, and this is Showtime right here on Phantom. Phantom is bringing you to the center of the Dallas sports discussion. Cowboys and Saints tomorrow night from AT&T Stadium. Thumbs up if you think the Saints, Cowboys win. Heart emoji if you think the Saints win. So just played for you a little video I created to commemorate that Cowboys victory over the Saints when they started 12-0 in 09. And DeMarcus Ware had 2 sacks in that game. Actually had 2 sack fumbles in that game. The one that ended the game, and then previously. But then you saw in that video, the week before, the Cowboys hosted the San Diego Chargers at the time, who were a really good football team that year in 09. And DeMarcus Ware was carted off with a neck injury in that football game, if you recall. It was a really scary sight where, it looked really, really bad. And he was able to then give it a go the following week in that Saints game and basically saved the Cowboys in that game with 2 sacks, the one that won it for him. And it's funny because I was talking, Sean Lee spoke yesterday in the locker room for the Cowboys and mentioned that game, talked about that game, and talked about that he was at Penn State. He remembers watching that game, and then he remembers that DeMarcus Ware had that injury the previous week, and was just talking about how amazing it was to watch him go out there and play, even though he had that neck injury the previous week, and was able to do that. And then he says, and then that next year I was drafted by the Cowboys, and it was insane, to be with that team and to play for and with DeMarcus Ware. 09, that's right. I'm Ari Temkin. By the way, you can catch me on the Dallas Cowboys pre- and post-game show on 105.3 The Fan. And, of course, you can catch me streaming live every day right here on Phantom. Phantom is bringing you to the center of the Dallas sports discussion. So shout out to all you watching. Hit the share button. I've got more video to play for you. We also have to talk about DeMarcus Lawrence and what he said, and then Michael Thomas's response to what he said. Plus, I want to give you my thoughts on how this Cowboys team can beat the Saints. It's well documented how good this Saints offense is. But there's different areas of this offense that are sort of deceiving when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. All right, shout out to everybody watching across the Phantom Facebook page at facebook.com/Watch Phantom. Make sure to hit the like page or the subscribe on the page. Also do that on YouTube. Quickest way to have your comments heard and read and interacted with is by going to facebook.com/Watch Phantom, but I will try and get to as many comments as quickly as I possibly can. Shout out to Henry Munoz, Michael Donovan, Kerry Teagle, G. Garcia, Chris Bennett, Joe Tranchina, David Alejandre, also Mike Wellman, Joe Maldonado, Tony Enriquez, Patricia Garibay, Melanie Kempf, Wayne Markley, Lisa Helman-Toller. They're watching on the Dallas Cowboys America's team page. Jeremy Mandel is also watching. Jeremy Mandel always argued that DeMarcus Ware was not clutch. Well, then I would implore Jeremy Mandel to watch the video of the Cowboys beating the Saints in 09 when DeMarcus Lawrence had the strip sack on Drew Brees that won the football game for them. Curtis Starks, Arlene Taylor, Joel Maldonado says Cowboys win 30-27. Mike Wellman says they can beat them by bringing back DeMarcus Ware to help back up DeMarcus Lawrence's mouth. Patricia Garibay says Grim Daddy Gonzalez. Interesting. Jason Wright says shared. Joe Tranchina says shared. Thank you. Everybody hit the share button if you have not yet already. And, of course, ask your questions, post your comments. Jeremy Mandel says that was the game. DeMarcus Ware was good. All right. Keith Jones, why do the Cowboys have to hurt my heart every year? I want them to win this game so bad, but them winning this game all but guarantees Garrett's job for next year. Maybe, probably. But, I mean, isn't this all about rooting for your team to do well? All right, so in a moment, I'm going to tell you how the Cowboys can beat the Saints. But I also want to tell you about Amari Cooper, who was the... I'm going to make myself smaller. He was the NFC Player of the Week this week. With his game against the Washington Redskins on Thanksgiving, where he had 8 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And obviously the 2 touchdowns in that football game proved to be the difference. I mean, they broke that thing open. But, what you'll see as we go through the highlights of all of his receptions in this game on Thanksgiving is, look at how many of these are first downs. I mean, and it's not just on third down situations, but on any down. There's another first down. I mean, the majority of Amari Cooper's receptions go for first downs. Here's another one. It's a third and short situation, and that's where he breaks free for the 40-yard touchdown. Then the next catch he has will be the 90-yard touchdown, which, again, as we talked about yesterday, was a really good throw by Dak Prescott, but an even better play by Amari Cooper to make it. But again, great anticipation by Cooper, not on this one necessarily. This is just a short slant that the defensive back falls down and the safety is nowhere to be found, and Cooper goes in for pay dirt. But the second one, which we'll see here in a moment, I mean, it's Dak Prescott anticipating a good throw, throwing into coverage. Basically, he reads the defense right off the bat, finds Cooper in one-on-one. Now the safeties come over, but they come over late, and Dak Prescott delivers the ball on time and in the perfect spot. Vanessa Michelle says, personally, I don't feel the Saints have had tough opponents this season other than the Rams. They have a fairly easy schedule. We'll get into that in a moment, but that's not a bad point. Here's the other one again. There's 3 guys around, but Dak does a good job in anticipating the throw at the right moment before those other 2 could arrive. And he read the defense perfectly as we looked at the All-22 yesterday to see, it's a good read by Dak. He sees Cooper is in single coverage. Cooper makes a break on the ball. He's open. He gets it to him, and by that time, the guys are too late to come over. So congratulations to Amari Cooper, the NFC's Offensive Player of the Week. Last week, the Cowboys had the NFC's Defensive Player of the Week in Leighton Vander Esch. So this team is really starting to hit its stride and doing so at the right time, obviously. But Amari Cooper, you just can't speak enough about the impact that this guy's having overall on this offense. It's been tremendous. He had 22 receptions with the Oakland Raiders for about 200 some yards and a touchdown. Already with the Cowboys, he's had 22 receptions, but almost 400 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. So, he's got the same amount of receptions in less games. He played 6 games with the Oakland Raiders, has more yardage and more touchdowns. So it's obvious that the Cowboys, with a number 1 wideout, the type of impact that Amari Cooper's having. And, this is a guy that when they made the trade, some people were questioning the trade, and is it right to give up a first-round pick in order to get a guy like Amari Cooper? And, I think, again, he's shown in just 4 weeks the value that he brings to the table. Peter Randa says, what will they say if we beat New Orleans? I think it's pretty obvious that if the Cowboys beat the Saints on tomorrow, that they will put the Cowboys with some of the best teams in the NFC. The Cowboys will be looked at as one of the best teams in the NFC if they're able to beat these Saints tomorrow night. All right, Ralph Garcia, Keith Price, Nathan Kerman all in the house. What up? Tyson, the West Coast Cowboy in the house. What up, Tyson? What do you think about this game? All right, so I believe it was Vanessa Michelle says, personally, I don't feel the Saints have had a tough opponent this season other than the Rams. They have a fairly easy schedule. Perhaps. We could sort of play that game with everybody, but, let's look at their opponents. They played the Buccaneers. That's the only team they've lost to this year, the first day of the regular season. They played the Browns, not a very good football team. They played the Falcons twice already. They played the Giants, not a good team. They played the Redskins, which at that point in time was a good win because the Redskins were a first-place team. They played the Ravens. They played the Vikings, the Rams, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Falcons again. So out of those teams who are good, well, the Rams are obviously good. The Vikings are a good football team, but the Vikings are a good defensive team, and so are the Ravens. And that's I think, when we have a discussion about how to think about this game, and how the Cowboys can beat the 10-1 Saints. To me, it starts with, let's look at how they played against Baltimore. So I went back and watched some film on the Baltimore Ravens in that game. So the Ravens are the number 1 defense in the NFL in terms of yards. They're the number 2 defense in the NFL in terms of pass yards. They're the number 3 defense in the NFL in terms of rush yards. And they're the number 1 defense in the NFL in terms of points. The Baltimore Ravens, they are 1, 2, or 3 in yards, pass yards, rush yards, or points. Number 1 in points, number 1 in yards. Baltimore's defense, okay? So Baltimore's defense is, by most statistical measures, better than the Cowboys' defense. Okay? Cowboys are 7th in yards. They are 12th in pass yards. Cowboys are 4th in rush yards, and they are 3rd in points. So the Cowboys are 3rd in points, 4th in rush yards. Baltimore's 3rd in rush yards, by the way. These just throwing out rankings as it pertains to defenses. So when we compare the teams the Saints have played this year, and what's sort of a good analog, the Ravens are a pretty good one. Now, the Ravens lost to the Saints 24-23 in Baltimore. So their defense held up their end of the bargain. It was the offense that didn't really do anything. Their offense, the Baltimore Ravens offense, had 77 rushing yards in that football game. And amazingly, the Saints, their defense isn't great, but they are number 1 defensively in the NFL in rush yards. So they've had a good defense in terms of against the rush. Now let's look at who they've played, right? They played Tampa Bay, who put up 112 rushing yards against them. They played Cleveland, who only had 93. The Falcons had 48. The Giants had 65. So that's a good rush offense, right? And the New York Giants. The Redskins only put up 39 rush yards against them. The Ravens put up the 77 I mentioned. Vikings had 85. Rams had 92. That's a pretty good rushing football team, only 92. The Bengals had 110. That's a pretty good rushing football team. The Eagles had 58. The Falcons only had 26 rushing yards. So the number one rush defense the Saints are in terms of yards given up by rushing attack. But there is no reason to believe the Cowboys shouldn't put up 100 yards rushing against this team, even though they're number one against the run in terms of yardage given up. The one thing that seems to have really gotten in the way for a lot of these football teams is that turnover margin. The Saints are +8 in the turnover margin, and it's not like they're great at generating turnovers. They don't really turn the ball over. Drew Brees has only 2 interceptions on the entire season. It's Drew Brees is having he's having an MVP season. 3,100 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, and 2 picks. So they have 2 picks that they've given up, and they've intercepted 10. They've had 10 interceptions. That gives them the +8. They've lost 7 fumbles, and they've gotten 7 fumbles. So they're even in fumbles, but they're +8 in interceptions, meaning they're +8 in the turnover ratio. And that has seemed to be such a huge piece. Dak Prescott can't throw interceptions. They can't turn the ball over. And when I look at, and by the way, hit the share button. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Phantom, where we are bringing you to the center of the Dallas sports discussion. I'm talking to you and explaining to you and hoping for your opinion on how you think the Cowboys can beat the 10-1 Saints. I'll get to your comments here as I scroll across multiple pages and platforms. The quickest way to have your comments heard and read is by going to facebook.com/watchphantom. But I'll get to all of these comments across all these different platforms as quick as I can. Diana Lopez is late. Keith Jones says Saints are number one rush defense because everyone has to pass against them to keep up. You could certainly argue that, but that's the thing too, is they're like, you watch their offense and they have long drives. You know, they're top 5 in time of possession offensively. I mean, you look at, so they are number 1 in the NFL in terms of yards per play, or rather yards per drive at 43. So they have 43 yards per drive. They're number 1 in the NFL by far in points per drive, 3.76, so almost 4 points per drive. And they score on 61% of their possessions, which is number 1 in the NFL by far too. So number 1 is 61% scoring percentage. Number 2 is Kansas City at 54%. 54%. It's absurd how good this offense is. Diana Lopez says, my bad, I was doing dishes. I found you can do dishes and watch this at the same time. That's what I always like to listen to podcasts or watch something while I do dishes. But I'm just kidding. Arlene Taylor says we need a strong defense and no penalties. So that's and that's really where I wanted to start this discussion on how they beat them. What's the recipe for beating them? I mean, mistakes. You just can't be punting the football to them. Like, the Cowboys can't punt. Because so you can't have turnovers, you can't have penalties, you can't be behind the sticks. You have to 1 and 2 yard plays are just so much better than giving up sacks and having penalties. You just have to have the football, you have to possess the football, you have to be able to get conversions on third down. You have to beat them at their own game, I guess is the best way to say it. Because, I know it's like, well, you have to have long, sustained drives, and you have to do this. Like, ultimately, what you have to do is you have to beat them at their own game. And what's their own game? They run the ball well. They convert. But they're also, they're creative. They go for it on fourth down a ton. They're 11 for 12 on fourth down. They had a fake punt against the Ravens in that game. On the first drive of the game, the Ravens defense held them to a 3 and out, and then they go fake punt and then convert and then and then go down the field with another long drive. So they go for it on fourth down. They're again 11 of 12 on fourth down this year. It's pretty significant, meaning they basically are going for it at least once a game on fourth down. And again, since they've won a bunch of games, it's not like they're down late having to go for it a bunch on fourth down. And they're just very creative. They'll use a lot of Taysom Hill as sort of a wildcat quarterback. They do so much pre-snap motion to try to figure out what they're doing defensively. The way I look at it is Tony Romo was the Cowboys offensive coordinator. And what they basically have, the Saints, so meaning that when Tony Romo was with the Cowboys, he'd walk up to the line of scrimmage, he'd look at the defense, he'd diagnose the defense, and then he'd call a play based on the defensive alignment, right? Like that's what Romo did. And the Saints are like that, only their quarterback and their coach can do that. So, I mean, they basically have this sense for what play to call, where to go to, who to go to, given a specific defensive alignment. And that's the scary thing about them. I mean, that's the scariest thing about them is you can line up on defense, and then they're going to look at your defense and then basically be like, all right, we're going to audible into this play because we know what you're going to run based on this defensive alignment. So the Cowboys have to beat them at their own game. Jason Garrett has to be aggressive on fourth down. Has to. They have to have long drives, count on their running game, keep the football, and be, just do out of the box things. Be creative. That's the thing is the only way to beat this football team is honestly by beating them their own game, which seems like a bad idea. But I just think the way that they're winning games is, they just have an explosive offense when they need to, but they also have sort of a pick your poison long drive kind of offense. And again, they go for it on fourth down. They make mistakes, but they're able to overcome those mistakes. So the Cowboys just have to be aggressive. They have to, again, they're going to have situations where they're going to go for it on fourth down. They've got to be creative in the red zone and figure out ways to score. And that's, a huge component of what makes them so successful. All right, on the Dallas Cowboys Really Real fan page, DeAndre Skinner says, I think Cole will be the X factor. Yeah, that's not a bad. I don't disagree with that at all. I certainly think, Cole Beasley. We figured when they got Amari Cooper, he'd play a big role in this offense, and we haven't really seen a huge game from him yet. But certainly I think against this secondary that's not great, they should have some opportunities to go after and get Cole Beasley more involved. Justin Dickinson says they need some slick trick plays to catch them off their heels. Saints are expecting the same old Dallas. Right, and that, again, like what the Saints do is they do have the potential to have an explosive offense. I don't want to downplay that. But they're not really an explosive offense, despite the fact that they score basically almost 4 points per drive. So they run the ball well. They continually want to run the ball. Like, here's what's amazing. So they're pretty balanced. They have 344 rushing attempts, and they have 363 passing attempts. So, I mean, they're pretty close to 50-50 as far as rush pass. And they run the football at 4 yards per carry. But you look at that Baltimore game. The Baltimore game is so interesting to me because they ran the ball in that Baltimore game a bunch, but only ran at 3 yards per carry. So they weren't successful running the ball, but they continually did it. They did it like 30 times in that game because that's how they win. It's not one of those things where they have to have success, so they stick with it. They continually stick with it, even if they're going up against a defense like Baltimore that's really good against the run. So again, Cowboys long drives. They have to take chances on fourth down. I'm of the belief you can't kick field goals in this game. You just, and I know Jason Garrett, that's the Jason Garrett special, is kicking field goals. You just can't. The New Orleans Saints are scoring 3.76 points per drive, meaning if you kick a field goal against them, they get the ball back and they're going to score more points than you. They're almost at 4 points per drive. So if you kick a field goal, you're basically giving up a full point to them. That's really important to note. The Cowboys, by the way, are at 2 points per drive. They're 16th in the NFL. Now it's hard to look at that stat for the Cowboys because they're a different offense. They're a completely different offense now. But You just can't kick field goals. You can't punt against this team. You can't be behind the sticks. You have to play basically mistake-free football. Keep yourself, in position to be, on time with the chains, and so mistake-free and take chances. That's it. The Cowboys have to be aggressive in this game, otherwise they're going to lose. If they sit back and kick field goals, they're going to lose this game. William White, good question, asks for updates on injuries. So the Cowboys are not practicing today. Yesterday was their final practice of the week before their game. The injury report that came out yesterday, let me get it for you. I actually meant to have it up on screen. And I probably can do that in a moment here. But so yesterday, Tavon Austin did not practice. Not surprising. Taco Charlton was a full participant, so it looks like Taco Charlton practiced fully this week, so it looks like he's going to be in position to play in this game. Malik Collins was limited. I think he'll play. Allen Hurns was full after being limited Monday with a thumb injury. David Irving, as we know, did not practice. He's not with the team. That's a different story altogether. Sean Lee did not practice. I talked yesterday after practice on my stream that I thought Sean Lee would be able to come back next week. Let's see here. Others, I don't know why this logo shows up in the middle of the practice report. I can't really see. You can kind of see this practice report. They for some reason, the way my phone, I can't see those players. There's a star in my way. So let's see here. Who else? Xavier Su'a-Filo is limited, but I think he'll play. The big one is Tyron Smith, who did not practice yesterday, a DNP yesterday, DNP earlier in the week. But, the indication is, at least, it seems like what Jerry Jones said was that he would try and give it a go, kind of like last week, where he doesn't practice all week, and then they see how he feels on Thursday. So the big one I would think is Tyron Smith will be a game-time decision, so we'll see if he'll be ready to go. If not, I expect to see Cameron Fleming and then Noah Brown sort of used his help. Same with Zeke Elliott. So we'll see how they manage that. But Taco Charlton looks like he will play after being out 2 or 3 weeks. Although, what's the expectation for Taco Charlton, who has really underperformed his entire career so far? So let me. You have to click on it from a desktop. Well, thank you, Justin. Anybody else that I missed on the injury report that you were interested in knowing about? Jason Turner wants to know what's wrong with Su'a-Filo. I think he'll play and he'll be fine. But, I mean, that's the deal. Is you'll see guys in the injury report where you're like, he's hurt. I mean, you play as many football games as the Cowboys have played this year. That's just it. You're going to have lingering issues, lingering injuries, and that's that's basically what Su'a-Filo is showing up in the injury report. He'll play, but yeah, I mean, he's got lingering issues, as do most of these guys that are playing, even guys that aren't even showing up necessarily on the injury report. All right, shout out to the Dallas Cowboys report, streaming across the Dallas Cowboys report and getting to comments over there. Tracy Laird Foster says shared, says Vander Esch, we have to feed Zeke. With their D out, pray that Tyron plays. Yeah. Feed Zeke, Beasley sauce, Nancy Hernandez, keep Breeze on the sideline. That's one way, no doubt. But that's the thing again, too. Tracy Foster at the question mark. What's up, Tracy Foster? Again, quickest way. I'm trying to get through all these different pages that we're broadcasting on. So quickest way to get your comments heard and interacted with is by going to facebook.com/watchphantom. I'm trying to get into as many comments as I possibly can. And then, of course... So just to recap, again, it might seem simplistic, but the Cowboys have to beat the Saints at their own game. They have to be aggressive on fourth down. I just don't think you can kick field goals and be successful against this football team. You've got to stay ahead of the chains. You've got to minimize penalties. You can't turn the ball over. You have to have these long, sustained drives because that's what they do. That's what the Saints do. The Saints, they don't turn the ball over. They don't have a lot of penalties. They run the ball well. They control the clock. They control the line of scrimmage, and they score a ton. They go for it on fourth down. They're aggressive. Like, that's what they do. So the Cowboys have to beat them at their own game. Stay aggressive, offensively, run the football, stay committed to running the football, and then when you want to not run the football, stay committed to it again. And then the other side, their defense, I'm very curious to see what the Cowboys defense can do against the Saints offense because, again, Baltimore limited the Saints to just 24 points. And Baltimore has the number one defense in terms of yards, number one defense in terms of number two defense in terms of pass yards, number three defense in terms of rush yards, and number one defense in terms of points. Cowboys are number 4 in rush yards, number 3 in points, and number 7 in yards total. But they're 12 in pass yards. So, again, we think this Cowboys defense is really, really good. Whether or not this defense is great, I guess we'll see this week, is sort of my answer to that. All right, now I want to get to what DeMarcus Lawrence said. Here we go. And I could just do this real quick, and then we'll be good to go. Boom, there that is. I'm just editing on the fly, no big deal. By the way, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Showtime on Phantom. If you're new to the show, if you're new to the page, make sure to check out facebook.com/Watch Phantom, where we've got a ton of unbelievably great, if I must say, Cowboys content. I do a daily stream on the Cowboys, answering your questions, interacting. We've got Know Your Opponent, which is a great breakdown of every week's opposition, with some funny sprinkled in. Who's to blame for the win or the loss from the great TJ Carpenter. Just a lot of great variants in our Cowboys content, so make sure to check it out at facebook.com/Watch Phantom. I take you inside AT&T Stadium during games. I take you inside the Star in Frisco. So again, we are at Phantom taking you to the center of the Dallas sports discussion. Also, while I'll have a moment, make sure to hit the share button and give me your emojis. Thumbs up if you think the Cowboys win this football game, and give me your prediction, your score prediction. Heart emoji if you think the Saints win this football game. And a shout out to Pollo Campero. If you like what we're doing here at Phantom, make sure to support our sponsors. Support the folks that are supporting us. So Pollo Campero, you can find one of their many, many locations across the country by clicking the link in the description. So Pollo Campero, and we do free chicken Fridays. I think I'm going to have to do a free chicken Friday tomorrow on a Thursday because I'm having a kid on Friday, so there will be no show on Friday. Or we're going to have to figure something out for Friday. But at any rate, Pollo Campero, South American, Central American, great chicken, plantains, sides. I mean, it's a very unique cuisine, so check it out, Pollo Campero. All right, hit the share button if you have not yet already. And thank you to all those who have. Let's get to DeMarcus Lawrence. So I was at DeMarcus Lawrence's locker room availability yesterday. I didn't even notice that he said this because most of the time that he spent talking, he was talking glowingly about the Saints offense. He basically said it's like Madden. And what he meant by saying that was not that they're so explosive, but rather it's like a Madden offense because they bring Taysom Hill in. They go for it on fourth down. They're very innovative and creative. So they do just so many different things. That's what he meant by saying that they're like a Madden football team. But so I didn't catch that he said this, but DeMarcus Lawrence, his quote was, "They're going to have to match our intensity, bleep, for 60 minutes straight. If you hit a bleeper in the mouth and then they ain't doing what they're regularly doing, putting up 50 points, they start to get a little distressed. Now you get them where you want them at, and then you're bleeping, choking their ass out." I don't know about you guys, but I love me some DeMarcus Lawrence. Love it. Mel Murphy says, and we do turn the ball over, so it looks like a loss. Well, the two things are, they take sacks, Cowboys take sacks, and they do turn the ball over, so that's what's problematic, but we'll see. It's a different offense. So here's what he's saying here. He's saying the Mike Tyson quote, right? The famous Mike Tyson quote that, everybody talks until everybody's a tough guy until they get punched in the face. That's what he's saying. That is very much so what DeMarcus Lawrence is saying when he says we have to choke them out. When they're not doing what they're regularly doing, all of a sudden now you get a team that's kind of reeling. And I mean, there's truth in that. Now here's another interesting stat. Breeze has only been sacked 10 times. So when you look at probably the most impactful part of this Saints team, their offensive line is there. Like, they have one of the best offensive lines in football. So that's one of the things where it's like, now Lawrence also said, well, they haven't played an offensive line like ours, and I get that, but I mean, they have a really good offensive line. We'll see this great battle, and that's in many ways where this game could potentially be won, is the battle between the offensive and defensive lines, offensive line of the Saints, the defensive line of the Dallas freaking Cowboys. But they protected Breeze well, and he stayed clean, and that's why they have these long drives. 10 sacks. I mean, Dak Prescott was sacked 4 times in the first half of the game against Washington. And Drew Brees has been sacked 10 times this entire season. So what DeMarcus Lawrence talks about, that quote, is very much indicative of how this football game could be won. Talking about, because football at its core is about invoking fear in the opposition, and more specifically in the quarterback, right? So, like, going way back, when there was the Bounty Gate scandal with this Saints football team, and people were, like, outraged, like, well, you're not supposed to be injuring players. I mean, I get that, but at the end of the day, like, football is about inspiring fear in the opposition. By the way, John Boughton on our Phantom YouTube page says, hey, Ari, watching you while I'm in my government class right now. Thumbs up. Voice of Reason says, Dallas wouldn't win if the Saints started Bridgewater. It's a fair point on the Phantom YouTube page. But the reason I sort of disagreed with the NFL coming down hard on Bounty Gate was because, like, that's it, like, when you're a defensive end like Lawrence and you sack and injure players, right? Not knowingly, but you get after guys and you take them to the ground, and if the byproduct of that is injury, you're going to get paid a lot of money. That's the truth, right? You're going to get big-time contracts. If you sack quarterbacks, the more you sack a quarterback, the more you inspire fear in them, the more they're now thinking about where DeMarcus Lawrence is coming from. That's what great pass rushers do. They inspire fear in the opposition. You sack them once, you sack them twice, now they're hurting a little bit, they're in a little bit of pain, and so now all of a sudden they're thinking about where the rush is coming from. That's what Lawrence is talking about. And that's defensively what the Cowboys are going to try to do. Now, I wonder if this means they're going to try to they're going to blitz him and bring extra pressure after him. I mean, I would certainly like to see them be aggressive, and that's what I've talked about, is be aggressive on both sides of the football, offensively, defensively. Be aggressive, be the aggressor. Get after Lawrence, get after Breeze, bring extra guys. But it's funny because if you watch the entire press conference, he was he talked very positively about the Saints and their offense, and then obviously he hits this up. But then we see Michael Thomas reacting, and here below are 3 tweets from Michael Thomas in succession, which, I'll blow them up for you a little bit here so you can get a better look at them. Hold on 1 second here while I figure this out. There we go. Okay, so he, the Marcus Lawrence quote, and then Michael Thomas retweets. On behalf of the entire Who Dat Nation, I'd like to say thank you to DeMarcus Lawrence. You just guaranteed petty Sean Payton is showing up Thursday. Skip Bayless says, no, DeMarcus Lawrence, just no. They're already explosive enough without provoking them. And then Michael Thomas tweeted himself, which is, don't bite off more than you can chew. Talking about choking. Good response from Michael Thomas. So I guess DeMarcus Lawrence gave them extra motivation with the bulletin board material. Okay. I love DeMarcus Lawrence. I love the attitude. I love his demeanor. I love his personality. He's great. He's a great player, and he's got a great personality, and I love this quote because he's right, because he's 100% correct, and this isn't going to fire them up anymore, right? Like, they want to win games. They've won 10 straight. They want to continue to be viewed as the class in the league, so I have no problems whatsoever with DeMarcus Lawrence saying this. In fact, I love it. So, I mean, that's, again, going back to how do the Cowboys beat the Saints? They have to be aggressive. They have to do something that we have never seen Jason Garrett do, which is consistently be aggressive for 4 quarters. And I must say, Cowboys fans, I think the majority of them are sort of in between these two ideas here of I want the Cowboys to win, but I don't want Jason Garrett to be here, right? I think where a lot of Cowboys fans are. Well, one of the reasons that I've been so critical of Garrett is this inability to evolve and adapt, and just a lack of aggressiveness and a passiveness, that passivity. That, I mean, you're just not going to win that way. You know, aggressive. Fortune favors the bold. Be aggressive. Don't be risk averse. That's always been my problem with Garrett, and that's why I think it's a fatal flaw for Garrett as the head coach. But we've got to give him credit for the way this football team has played during this 3-game winning streak, and since they brought in Amari Cooper. But maybe the biggest test of this game will be Jason Garrett, because his willingness to be aggressive, to evolve, to adapt, could be a factor in them winning this game. So, regardless of the outcome, maybe that's what we should be paying attention to the most. Is Jason Garrett aggressive? Is he willing to take risks and take chances on fourth downs? Is he willing to be aggressive with his defense? I mean, are they just going to take this aggressive mentality into this football game? Ryan England says, why is that, Ari? Why is it when we are clicking and aggressive and our scheme is working, why do we go away from it? I mean, there's a lot to that question. I mean, I would just say on the whole, my biggest problem with Jason Garrett has been he's risk averse as a head coach. So that's like the short answer to that is there's a risk averse head coach that doesn't want to be aggressive, because in being aggressive, you could make mistakes. And if you could make mistakes, that's the thing, right? Like, a lot of head coaches are risk averse, meaning they don't want to be aggressive, because if you're too aggressive, you make mistakes, and mistakes cost you the game. But the other side of that is, well, if you're aggressive, you can make mistakes, but you could also be successful. What a concept, right? So there are a lot of coaches in the NFL that are risk averse because they're worried about making mistakes and the risks the risks that they could take backfiring, and they lose. But the other side of that is the risks they take could actually end up being good. And I think this is a risk-taking game against a risk-taking team. And DeMarcus Lawrence's quote, to me, says it all. It says it all. Right there. Got to be aggressive. Got to get after him. This is a guy in Drew Brees that's been sacked 10 times the entire season. Dak Prescott was sacked 4 times in the first half against Washington. Drew Brees has been sacked only 10 times. They have to get after him. They have to bring extra guys. They have a good offensive line. DeMarcus Lawrence, maybe he can get to the quarterback without extra pressure, but you've got to bring extra guys. And if that leaves you susceptible with one-on-one matchups at the back end, you have to live with it. You have to live with it. Junior Lopez says Jason Garrett has to be unpredictable, period. Sometimes he can be too predictable, and that's what kills the offense. Yeah, fair, sure. I mean, absolutely. That is from Junior Lopez. Roy Winder says wide receiver, tight end. He's from college. He's no play you must see. Interesting. Ryan England says so he plays not to lose instead of plays to win. And I'd say you could say that pretty unequivocally. Jason Garrett plays not to lose. Yeah. But Jason Garrett should be getting credit for the last 3 games. He should. And their offense has changed a little bit. Now, Amari Cooper is a reason for that, but they are being less predictable. Now it's time to see. So we've seen their schemes change a bit. Now it's time to see their head coach change a bit in terms of the ability, the willingness to be aggressive. But I have a feeling Garrett's going to say, no, we're going to beat them playing our game, which is, long sustained drives. We'll kick field goals when they're there. We're not going to take too many risks, which I just don't think the Cowboys can beat them playing their game. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the Cowboys have to beat the Saints playing the Saints game. That's how they're going to win this football game. Donna Nelson says we have to get after also Kamara and Mark Ingram, Leighton Vander Esch, and Jalen Smith can get them. I believe so. All right, what else do you guys want to know? Got a few minutes left to answer questions. We can also run through the great play of Amari Cooper last week and just watch the creativeness for which this Cowboys offense has started to play with, play calling and such. But, I mean, he's just a first down monster. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's third down, if it's first down. I mean, he's going to convert. Here's another conversion, third down conversion. Just get him the ball. And that's what you do with number one wideouts. They convert for you. But the thing is, Esteban Moreno wants to know if Tavon Austin's available. No, he's not going to play. Tavon Austin and Sean Lee could potentially play next week. I think Sean Lee will play next week. I don't know about Tavon Austin, but they both could potentially play next week. But no Tavon Austin in this game. Austin, Lee, David Irving, all going to be out. Taco Charlton will play. He's practiced all week. So maybe that's good news. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But certainly it adds to the ability to get after Drew Brees, right? Because even if Taco Charlton can't, even if Taco Charlton can't get a lot of sacks, at the very least, the Cowboys in this game will have a good rotation of defensive ends that they can rotate through. Who's starting at tight end from Joe Tranchina? That would be Dalton Schultz. Jeff Swaim is still out. Yesterday in the locker room, he had a cast on his wrist, so he's still getting over that wrist. Keith Jones wants to know my game prediction tomorrow. Do that tomorrow. Neil Favre says, first play of the game, play action deep to Amari, hit him in the mouth. No, I long sustained drives. First play of the game, run it to Zeke. Second play of the game, run it to Zeke. Third play of the game, throw it to Amari. Convert. Fourth play of the game, run it to Zeke. Fifth play of the game, run it to Zeke. Sixth play of the game, throw it to Amari. Convert. Larry Bogan says, I hope Lee doesn't play. Disagree with that. I understand the idea of how good Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith have been playing together, but Sean Lee is a guy that you want playing. Whatever Smith and Leighton Van Der Esch lack in the mentality, the leadership piece, Sean Lee makes up for. Isaac Pauda says, who's starting at left guard? That would be Xavier Su'a-Filo. And that's, again, something I've been talking about this week. But Xavier Su'a-Filo is until he has a bad game, he's the Cowboys starting left guard. Nicholas McCreate wants to know if Taco's done anything. No, not really. Junior Lopez says, Van Der Esch or Sean Lee, and why? The Cowboys are going to say to that question both. Both. Meaning they're going to rotate those guys. And the answer to that, and look, I tend to agree with that because there's things that Leighton Van Der Esch can do that Sean Lee can't do, but there's things that Sean Lee can do that Leighton Van Der Esch can't do. So, I mean, it's nothing but a positive to have him out there. Could keep them fresher. And look, I mean, I think, again, there's things that Lee can do that Leighton Van Der Esch can't do. And vice versa. Jay Arrowwood says, Garrett leaves too many points in the field, first and goal inside the 5. I know Zeke runs 4th and 1 at the 32 on the Skins and should have kicked a field goal to go up 14. Had nothing to lose except 7 yards of Maher missed. I mean, that's play calling. It's specific to Linehan. I mean, again, I'm going to hold judgment until this game, and not in terms of Jason Garrett, but just because, again, I kind of go back to one of the things I've always criticized Garrett about is too risk averse, too unwilling to change, too unwilling to evolve. That's a fatal flaw. Not aggressive enough. And that's what I'm going to be watching for in this game. Is he aggressive? Are they aggressive defensively? Are they aggressive offensively? Are they going to go for it? Are they going to take chances? Are they playing for 3 or are they playing for 7? Those are the things that I want to watch for. Because if they play for 3 and they're not getting after Drew Brees and they're worried about him beating us the back end, well, you're still going to get beat then. All right, any other comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, opinions? Thank you all, by the way, for being a part of today's show, an everyday show. I appreciate it. This show doesn't exist without you guys. This is a Cowboys community, and we commence this community every day at 12 noon Central right here on Facebook.com/Watch Phantom. So make sure to be here on time every single day, 12 noon. Thank you to G. Garcia. G. Garcia says, I trust LVE more than Lee versus the pass. But that's, we can't just go like situation. I know Neil Favre said you bring him out on third downs. Like, you can't just go situation by situation. Like, Sean Lee's a better leader. He knows how to read offenses more. He knows how to change. Like, this would be a good game to have Sean Lee back, quite frankly, because of how good the Saints are at changing up their offense. So, I mean, it's not a situation-by-situation thing. It's just more of a, they both bring things to the table that the others can't. Leighton Vander Esch is younger, and therefore, he's better against the pass. He can be more physical, right? Like, physically, Leighton Vander Esch is better. Mentally, Sean Lee's better. So you have to figure out a way to maximize both of those. By the way, if this is your first time watching, I'm Ari Temkin. Nice to meet you, and I invite you back tomorrow to be a part of this community and help us spread the gospel. Ray Pierce and David Alejandre and Kerry Teagle and G. Garcia and Warren Merle and Neil Favre and Patrick Prescott and Joe Tranchina and Keith Jones and Jay Arrowwood and Justin Dickinson and many others, Tracy Laird and Efren Moreno. And you guys are here every day, and I notice your names, and I appreciate you very much. This show wouldn't exist without your participation, without your input. Again, this is a opinion-based sharing community. Ryan England. So hopefully, if I didn't mention your name, come back to this stream tomorrow and the next day. And Ty Shelton says you just missed it. No worries, Ty. You can go back, rewind it, and watch the whole thing through it. It was fun. But if I didn't mention your name, come back tomorrow, and I'll hopefully. We'll commit your name to memory, and then I'll mention you as a big part of the community. But I'm back tomorrow, and tomorrow should be a crazy fun day because I'll do this show, and then I'll drive out to AT&T Stadium for the pregame show on 105 through the Fan. So it should be a lot of fun. But for now, everybody, I am out. Peace. Enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow I give you my prediction. But for now, I leave you with this amazing video that I made earlier that you can still watch by itself, but that I'm going to leave you with that for now. So check out this awesome video.
This is 24 yards for a 10-point lead. The kick's away from 20. He hit the right upright, and it bounced out no good. That's exactly how they did it. From the 23, he's back to throw.